Last time we left Van Halen, the debut album had just dropped, February 1978. The world hadn't caught up yet. That was about to change. Fast. What happened between 1978 and 1982 was one of the most explosive rises in rock history. 4 albums, hundreds of shows, millions of fans, and a band that was slowly, quietly, coming apart. Warner Brothers threw Van Halen on tour with Black Sabbath, opening act, 6 weeks. Every night, Sabbath fans showed up expecting darkness and thunder, and instead got this joyful, explosive band from California nobody had heard of. By the end of the tour, people were leaving after Van Halen. Radio picked it up fast. Runnin' with the Devil, Ain't Talkin' About Love, You Really Got Me. These weren't just rock songs, they were anthems. That was Van Halen's gift. Pure, unapologetic joy. The debut would eventually sell over 10 million copies in the US alone. The question now wasn't whether Van Halen could make it. The question was, how big could they actually get? Van Halen II came out in March 1979. The band hadn't stopped touring long enough to breathe, but somehow they'd written, recorded, and released another record. Dance the Night Away, Beautiful Girls, Somebody Get Me a Doctor. It hit number 6 on the Billboard 200. Here's what you need to understand about this band. David Lee Roth and Eddie Van Halen were fundamentally different people. Roth was a showman. He wanted hits, spectacle, fun. Eddie was an artist who wanted to push into darker, more complex territory. For a while, that tension made Van Halen great, but tension has a way of becoming something else. By 1980, Van Halen were selling out stadiums. Women and Children First was their heaviest, most aggressive record yet. The World Invasion Tour ran 124 shows. They called it the Party Till You Die Tour, and they meant it. Buried in this era is one of the most touching moments in Van Halen's catalog. On Diver Down in 1982, they recorded Big Bad Bill, featuring Eddie's father, Jan Van Halen, on clarinet, the same man who taught his boys music in the Netherlands, playing on his son's album. It says everything about where this band came from. Fair Warning came out in April 1981. Something was different, darker, more complex. Mean Street opened with an unaccompanied guitar passage unlike anything Eddie had done before. What most fans didn't know was that Eddie was struggling badly with alcoholism. The band had barely stopped moving since 1978, and the cracks between Eddie and Roth were becoming harder to paper over. So in 1982, they made Diver Down, looser, more fun, more commercial. Covers of Pretty Woman and Dancing in the Street. Roth's vision winning out. It went platinum immediately. But Eddie wasn't standing still. While Roth pushed for party anthems, Eddie was in his home studio experimenting with synthesizers. He was hearing something a guitar alone couldn't produce. What he was building would become the biggest song of Van Halen's career. Something had to give. Next episode, we get to 1984. Jump, Panama, Hot for Teacher, the biggest year of Van Halen's career, and the last year David Lee Roth would ever be in this band. Subscribe so you don't miss it.